Virginia, and I have Ruth Barrett with me today. I'm really excited to be talking with Ruth. And where are you coming from, Ruth?
I'm coming from Michigan.
Michigan.
Hmm.
We have lots of folks in Michigan, some
That's
folks in
right.
Everett and all of that stuff.
Yep.
That's great. I'm so excited to have you here today. How are things for you in Michigan today?
Today they're great. Yesterday I was in the basement with a tornado warning. So
Fine.
I'm happy to be looking out and there's not a sign of one. So we
All
don't
right.
usually get them. And so it was what that was for about half hour. And fortunately we are good.
Yeah, the Bay Area has been lovely this spring so far. It's the whole climate change thing. We're all experiencing it,
Yeah.
aren't we?
Yes,
Yeah,
we are. Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. So, my goodness, I first encountered you in, I think, 1978 at the Southern California Renaissance Fair. And we probably did not meet in person, but boy, you impressed me.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
I think it was yeah, that was some of the golden years of those early Renaissance fairs, the ones that
Mhm.
started the rest of them around the country. And it was a wonderful place to be. I started working there in 1971, actually, doing a cappella singing with a duo and a trio at times, and working with a extraordinary puppeteer who had a walking stage, and we did, I mean, lots of things. And I was also the Queen of the May for several of the festivals too, and that was really great. That was fun.
That's fantastic.
Hmm.
Well, so you've been doing your music professionally for quite some time.
Hmm.
Tell us
Yes,
a little bit about how you got started and how you decided to end up in the more of the folk realm.
sure. Well, I had never seen a dulcimer before until it must have been like just after the winter holidays in 1971. And I was in high school, and there was a young woman there who had received a dulcimer for Christmas. And I was like, what is that? Because I had been playing folk guitar, just accompanying the folk music and such. And I sat with that and my life changed. It was just absolutely, oh, okay, something is here for me for sure. But at that time, there really were not teachers at all. The only book that was available, and I'm sure you know, the original Jean Ritchie book was the
Right.
the only one, at least that I was aware of at that time. And it was, when we played with the noter, the little bamboo, excuse me, something got in my eye, little bamboo stick, and running it up and down the fretboard. I didn't like that so much. So I started, using my fingers a bit, but I mean, again, it was just making stuff up. I mean, and that was wonderful too. Such a creative space. And then I had the fortune of meeting dulcimer player Holly Tannen in 1972.
Oh,
And
that's great. Good timing.
yes, she and I was at attending the San Diego Folk Festival, and I, of course, was doing Elizabethan music because I was also connected to the Renaissance Fair, right? And I was interested in lute music, and I was interested in medieval music and such. And this woman is sitting down and she's playing an Elizabethan song on the dulcimer, and I was like, it was again. So that's where I met my friend Holly, and we're still friends to this day. And I had 2 half-hour lessons with her at at an old place in Southern California called the Ash Grove. It was one of the original folk clubs from the late 1950s into the 1960s.
What a beautiful name.
I know, the Ash Grove. And I had a couple of lessons with her, and that was it. And I took off with really just like two chordal finger positions, the bar chord and the bar and thumb chord. And I played everything I needed to do. I'm an ear player, also. And I could find my way and remember it all because, again, I'm an ear player. And I didn't know to write down anything at that point. I was just memorizing everything and sense memory. And it wasn't until probably 1978 where another woman I knew, Lori Cole, she turned me on to the diagonal chord position. I'd never seen that before. And it was like, oh my gosh, that's the hardest thing ever. And I was like, it was just because I was so used to, a certain thing. And then, of course, it's just practice and then it becomes comfortable, right? So,
Right.
but that really was, and I played with Lori some at that time, and we had a trio with a fellow named Mark Simos, wonderful musician and songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire. And we we played at McCabe's Guitar Shop, and we were opening for Bert Jansch of Pentangle at that time, and almost all of our repertoire was Bert Jansch songs, so we had to quickly, learn some other things. But prior to that, I really had the fortune of opening. My first time performing was in the 1970s, mid 1970s ish, opening for Malvina Reynolds. And
Oh,
Malvina Reynolds, who is, for those of you who are listening who don't know her, is an amazing songwriter. She wrote Little Boxes
right.
and Turn Around,
Mhm.
those classic, beautiful songs. I opened for her there and others, eventually, Jean Redpath and Jean Ritchie and um, Frankie Armstrong,
Oh, yeah.
from who's one of my mentors from the British Isles. And anyway, and then I met Cynthia Smith in 1978, 79. I think it was 79. And I listened to your wonderful interview with her. I encourage everyone who's listening to please listen to Cynthia Smith's interview with DJ because it was amazing. And that was fantastic because I love to collaborate. And here was another dulcimer player who was a better dulcimer player than me. But so I got to grow in that respect. I got to, become a better player as a result of working with her. But my goal personally was always song accompaniment.
Right.
My goal was not really necessarily becoming a great dulcimer player in terms of it being this fabulous solo instrument, going all over the place. And I still think of myself that way, because that's what I love to do. It's not that I don't enjoy playing instrumentals, of course I do, but the accompanying of the song and allowing the song to come forward and the stories to come forward is really my intention above all else.
I know that that's what really inspired me when I saw the two of you and the group of people you had pulled together, which often happens at these fairs, right? Musicians find each other, or you say, hey, just come out to the fair this weekend and play with us. I'll get you a gate pass, right?
Right.
That's the sort of community that it is. And the
Yes.
level of musicianship of everyone you brought together, you all seemed to elevate each other.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was marvelous to behold.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so thankful also to the fellow I've recorded with forever, Scott Frazier,
Hmm.
because in terms of the studio recordings, which Cynthia and I started doing in 1980 or 81, I think it was 81, our first recording, Aeolus,
Hmm.
he brought in musicians from the Aman Folk Ensemble because he was doing sound for them. And so we again met, because I've always been interested in folk music. I've been involved in some level of folk music all my life. Um, but he brought in really other kinds of European instruments that we were able to, and other styles of playing. And it really was lovely and continues to be.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm very thankful for the way that musicians do come together and create something that they couldn't have done on their own.
Hmm. Well, you'll enjoy this. I went out to my record collection.
Ah, yes. Those were the
So this
days.
was in what year?
That's 1982.
1982. So this was your
Yes.
second album.
Yes, and actually the background, we're at the former Renaissance Fair hill, like where these all the parades kind of came down at the old Paramount Ranch. And
Hmm.
that's where this was shot. And so we're up there on that hill, and that's wearing these amazing clothes that we got to borrow for the occasion, and holding these gorgeous flowers. And this was our second record.
Right.
Um, and it was more of a spring, summer kind of feel. And the first recording, Aeolus, that we did in a year earlier, that was more of a winter introspective
Hmm.
stories, like you're sitting around a fire.
Hmm. I never
Yeah.
thought of it that way. And then I also came across this.
Yes, yes. Oh, this was such a gorgeous cover. Claudia Cunin shot this, and frankly, the other covers that we had. This was the last of the LP years,
Yes.
where, till it changed over to cassettes, and then cassettes to CDs, and now it's become who knows what. But that was a set that was built by a woman named Rosemary Warren. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. And then finally this.
yes, a Dulcimer Harvest. Now, actually, Dale Foyce shot that image. And
Hmm.
yeah, that was everyone was always asking for, do you have an instrumental album? And so we pulled from previous recordings, and then Cynthia wrote a lot for that album. And
Oh, those are hers.
a lot of the originals that are on there are definitely hers. So we played those, and some of them are her solos. It's really pretty. It's really beautiful.
Well, I refer to these often as part of how I started to hear the dulcimer. And it's amazing to me. The only other dulcimer teacher I had until the 21st century was Holly Tannen.
Right.
She did one workshop at the Freight and Salvage.
Yes. Great.
And now
Yes.
I'm the dulcimer teacher at the Freight and Salvage.
That's
It's
wonderful.
it's amazing. Yeah, and
That's
she and
that's
I stay
amazing.
in touch all the
Yeah.
time. So
That's great. That's so great. Yeah, she's up in Mendocino, and I just adore her, and she really changed my life
yeah,
in so many ways. Um, you know, the amazing thing about the dulcimer, of course, anyone listening to this who's been following you know, these talks knows that how different the different styles are, and how the variety, what you can do with the instrument is so amazing.
right,
And my preference always was more in the Celtic kind of vein, and the original music that I do has that kind of feel to it.
right.
I'm not really a modern music. I don't I enjoy it when I hear other people doing it, but it's not my thing. Um it's always been the folklore behind the stories, and I went into that professionally, um, studying folklore in at the university, and uh, going into what are the symbols behind the various ballads, the traditional songs,
Mhm.
especially. I enjoy that immensely. And of course, what happens when you track the symbolism, it always leads you into pre-Christian times. It always leads
Right,
you into pagan themes, because that's where things are sort of hidden in plain sight, I would say.
right. The Celtic, the Welsh, the Cornish,
Hmm.
um, Irish, Scottish, all of that, you keep coming across these tales of magic.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And that's my magnet. I
Mhm.
can recognize them when I hear them, and then it's like, okay, I want to learn that one. I mean, I've done a lot of solo albums, some of that are, completely focused on otherworld, the otherworld themes, fairy lore, um, traditional and original works. And a lot of it is goddess mythology, which is an area that I went into besides music, was a lot of teaching. I'm a ritualist, so that's the other main thing that, frankly, that I do is I teach women's ritual making and other arts in in that realm.
Mhm.
And music is always a part of it, and chants and, you know, creativity in that way
Mhm.
about
Yeah,
nature.
yeah. The women's spirituality movement came along at about the same time, at
Yes.
least coming out came
Yes.
out at this time,
Yes.
and the whole concept that everything being patriarchal was not necessarily the way A, things had always been, and B, they have to be.
Right.
That
Right.
at the very least, there's the equality, if possibly not an upending of
Hmm.
things.
Yes.
And that spiritual aspect really does play out in a lot of our mythological tales, a lot of the
Ab-
stories that we tell each other, a lot of the stories we've been told and follow.
Absolutely. And so that's been a big interest and focus of the music that I either share when I'm in doing concerts or chants or things like that, or ones that I write. Um, I
And the
like to
seasonal stuff,
the
right?
seasonal. I've been doing seasonal theme concerts for so many decades now. I honestly don't remember. Cynthia Smith and I did a lot of that when we were performing together and up until 2000 when I moved to the Midwest.
Right.
So, but I've continued that. And I love doing seasonal concerts because it helps me personally to kind of move into the energetic of the season. But also I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by how these stories that are contained or the symbols resonate today with people. And I think it's just because I think of it, I guess, this way is that we are our ancestors. I mean, we are where our ancestors ended up. Here we are sitting
Mhm.
here right now, and whatever date this is in the 21st century, but part of them is still with us. And I think that that may be, I don't know, it's maybe, I can't prove that as a theory, but it makes sense to me that that might be so. And it's also just beauty. It's just beauty to me. And so I think about how much the world really needs more of that, more beauty, more meaning, more connection to nature and one another. And that's really where I come from in why this has been my focus for my whole life in one way or another. It's not everyone's cup of tea, perhaps, but it is mine. And I'm true to, we're not supposed to, what is that phrase? You might as well be yourself because everyone else is taken, you know? So, yeah, and I love teaching. I mean, I really enjoy teaching the dulcimer. It's just such a pure, utter joy for me to do that. And so, and no matter what someone does with what I give them, hopefully they'll create something for themselves in what brings them happiness.
The thing that really strikes me is the connection of the Appalachian roots of the mountain dulcimer
Hmm.
and the music that one plays on it, including accompanying the songs that come
Yeah.
from Appalachia, and the fact that all of the old ballads are that we have in Appalachian or English translations harken back to Scotland and England and
Yes.
Ireland. And every single one of those songs that we love that are old beyond measure,
Yes.
inevitably you find another version of it. And I really love going back to the child ballads for just that reason.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's actually one of a big piece of the research that I did so heavily, especially in the 1970s. I'm looking right across my own room at my collection of the child ballad volumes, actually. And that's what I did because I would hear the American versions, like you were saying, and I would find I wonder if there's a variation here. Of course there is.
Mhm,
There's or a theme that continues.
mhm.
And I just think it's fascinating about it's just says a lot about humanness somehow.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's so much power there also, I think, for women.
Hmm.
I know that a lot of people talk about the stories of highwaymen and all of this stuff, but there's also for every song or story about highwaymen, there's one about how the woman like tricks them.
Yeah.
Right?
I have to tell you, I find those to be like treasure trove little gems. Like, how did that one survive? How did that one squeeze
The
through?
crafty maid's policy. That's a
The
perfect one.
crafty race policy is exactly right, or Sauve, or the female highwayman, or there's so or Made on the Shore,
I love that one.
which also has mythology that has to do with the mermaid. Is she a
Mhm,
mermaid because she uses her voice
mhm,
to make put the sailors to sleep who would do her harm, and she gets away with all their stuff. I mean,
mhm.
I love that. And I love that those songs exist because I was not going to propagate the woman as victim in any of the music that I would do
Yep.
because that's what everyone hears all the time.
Mhm,
I'm not going to propagate that. Is some of them are beautiful. They're still interesting stories, but I
mhm,
would rather choose the other, women in traditional song where she actually has some power, especially in times where women hardly had any. So the women who took that power and those that were immortalized in those songs, I
mhm.
mean, these are real sheroes, you
Yes,
know.
exactly.
You didn't have a feminist movement per se to back them up. They just like they had to go and risk their lives to do what they wanted to do, whether they needed to dress as a man to do it, because that was also true. A woman wanted to follow her lover and follow and join him where he was fighting, dressing in men's clothing to go and do that.
Mhm.
Great
So,
risk to her.
so many songs about that joining and joining the Navy or joining the army as a red petticoat girl, which
Right.
is basically to say a camp follower,
Mhm.
um, because women were being abandoned. Their families were being abandoned. They were
Right.
being abandoned by their fathers, their
Mhm.
husbands, their lovers, and why not go there? So if he dies, at least I'm
Mhm.
there.
And also how many roles were available, truly.
Right.
We live in a time where women have the more obvious choices about how to live, some by necessity and some just because you want to follow your bliss, and you want to follow your passion into a career.
Mhm,
So yeah, it just makes those women, those anonymous women, just
mhm,
come to life for me. Like, and I just want to know more about them. And you can find out more about women's studies has done a lot to reveal who some of these women were. Um, I love it. I just love it. And so there's that. And then of course there's the fairy lore and the goddess lore, and those are really, where I put a lot of my energy.
mhm. Well, it's it still feels to me like a continuation of the search from the hippies of the 60s, a continuation of the search for personal meaning and personal expression, creative expression,
Hmm.
spiritual exploration, uh,
Yes.
a non acceptance of the status quo
Yes.
in ways that our parents did not understand.
Hmm.
But they loved us anyway, most of us.
Yes. Most of us. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So to me, it's a it's one of the ways of reclaiming the plurality of humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still do spend a lot of time in my work in women's community. Um, I came out in the mid 1980s, a little earlier than that, and that was an interesting journey because there was a lot of homophobia in folk community at that time for live performance. And but weathered that, you know. But I also found a home to some extent in women's music, what was called women's music at that time. But that had more to do with contemporary women's singer-songwriters and less about, the fact that women's music is music done by women. I was looking at always more broadly, like you have to go a little broader than that. It can't be a few singer-songwriters, that's all good too. Well, of course. Um, and women's music that had to do with women's lives is again where my focus was coming from, folk music. So that is still where I go when I play and when I do performances. I do a lot of women's festivals. Frankly, I'll go anywhere where I'm hired to go no matter what. I mean, the audiences have always been mixed when things are open to the public. It's always great. And I love to give the folklore always along with the song, or the songs that I'm doing, and to talk about the season.
Mhm.
It's always a wonderful thing. So yeah, I have an interesting life. I'm so thankful, deeply thankful. And I think that what you were saying, Deborah, about I'm a product of the times. I am, and I just turned 70 this year. And, I was a teenager when I started playing the dulcimer. I bought the dulcimer that I first got was a birthday present. I must have been for my, I think, 17th birthday, something like that, in 1971. I went to get my dulcimer the day of it was huge earthquake in Los Angeles. And
Yeah.
it was the day that I went to, the dulcimer shop. It was, Dulcimer Works, it was called. And this fellow named Carmi Simon, not Carly, Carmi Simon, was a dulcimer maker in Venice, California. And I went there, and that was my birthday present. That's what I wanted. And of course, only a month earlier, I had been exposed to the dulcimer for the first time. I know.
You went
And
all
then
in.
I know. And then I named the dulcimer a Hebrew name, actually, Ra'ad Adin, which means gentle trembling,
Mm.
which matched the sound of the dulcimer, but also the earthquake. The day that I got the dulcimer that day. So
Sounds like a prayer that the trembling should remain gentle.
yes, that
Yes.
is, it's a double meaning, a double, please.
My
Yes.
goodness.
Yeah. Now that dulcimer, by the way, this is fun. I hadn't thought about sharing this. That dulcimer now is the only Western instrument to be in an instrument collection in Houdetsi on the island of Crete in Greece.
My goodness.
I donated it. I go every year. I bring groups of women there for like a goddess pilgrimage tour thing.
Mhm.
And there's this amazing museum that was there. They're rehoming the whole thing now. But instruments from Turkey, Middle East, Asia, everything except, like, you won't see a single guitar.
Mhm.
My dulcimer's there. Right next to this instrument from Borneo that looks a lot like a dulcimer. I don't remember what it's called, but after that, Cynthia and I were originally playing folk roots, dulcimers, and then she began to create instruments with Dale Foy, and assisting him, and then of course doing beautiful inlay work. I have one here I can just do a show and tell.
Sure.
It just, but this is a beautiful one. I'm actually selling this one, but this is,
Oh my.
she did the gorgeous sound holes, as you can see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, oh, and the only reason it's hardly been played, and the only reason I'm frankly selling it is because um I I um I bought it for my daughter, who's a wonderful musician.
Right.
She used it on a record she did for Warner Brothers, and she said, "I'm selling it. Do you want it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do want it." I
Wow.
know. I know. So I bought it from her, but I really don't need it. And it's virtually new, so it's available. Anyway, I love the Aeolus dulcimers. They're just stunningly beautiful. And Dale isn't making them anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, contact me if you're interested, because yeah, I
So
yeah,
that's not the only thing you're selling these days. You got a book, right?
do. I'm very excited. This is Dulcimer Muse, tunes and songs from far-flung times and places.
Hmm.
And this is a repertoire book of songs and tunes that I love. I would say there's more tunes than songs. And yes, even though I talked about myself as an ear player, and I am, of course I know how to write out tablature. I had to learn to do that to teach because I teach dulcimer. So, you
Right.
know, and Neil Hellman helped me a lot. Neil Hellman helped me a lot with this, I wanted him to put it into a certain look on finale, and did that. And then my friend Rachel did the notation because I don't read. I'm totally an ear player.
Okay.
So, and then there's, instructional things as well, of course. But
Yeah.
if folks like the style that I play, which is, again, the Celtic, it's very harp-like, lute-like in its orientation, then then the book you'd like. It's got Breton tunes too, Irish, Scots, English, some original that I've done.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm very proud of it. I'm very, very happy I have it.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
These
you.
having when I finally did my first book, I was like, the edits never end, do they?
Oh, they absolutely don't. It's actually your book inspired me to finally get off my butt and do it.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
I
So
appreciate that.
inspiration inspires inspiration.
Yes, that's
It's
for
a full
sure.
circle here.
Full circle.
I
Yes.
love that. I love that.
That's right. That's
So
right.
what are you doing these days? What are you looking forward to? Are there any projects or any events that are happening this year that you're really excited about?
I'm doing more events this year since the pandemic kind of subsided, you know, to as far as the shutdowns, because I think more things are happening
Mm.
again. So I'm doing some women's festivals, definitely. Um I'm doing the Yosemite Goddess Festival in Mariposa, California. It's
I
open
know
to everyone.
Mariposa.
Yeah, it's open to everyone. And that's in October, the first weekend in October.
Hmm.
I'm doing the Midwest Women's Herbal Conferences put on a Mycelium Mysteries. It's all about mushrooms, and I don't know anything about mushrooms, so don't write to me and say, "Hey, identify this please for me." I will not know. I'm doing other things for it. But again, my career, if you will, has really, I always try to kind of separate things out some, but there's crossover between what I do on the dulcimer and what I do as a ritualist. So I do a lot of, opening and closing ceremonies for these events. I teach ritual making. I do chant workshops and teach creating chant workshops. So it kind of, they merge and they blend. I sort of keep them separate, but not really. It depends. So I'm doing a lot of traveling, more than I have in a while. I'd like to do more dulcimer events, but I've been a little bit out of the loop, so to speak. And but it's okay. I'm back in the loop, I'm also back in the loop because I have the book out, and I'll go wherever someone wants to have me come. So,
Have
and
you done much? Have you done much teaching online yet?
I have not done a lot of teaching online, but I'm starting to now again. And I was just now, like yesterday, uh, given this thing that shows how to, shows your hands, because I've tried to do it online where I haven't been able to do that so easily. And now I think I can actually make it work better.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's really important that
It's,
they.
and I
Yeah.
think that's why I really haven't been pushing that or publicizing that so much because, I'm teaching the dulcimer at a summer event called Women Play Instruments. And
Ooh.
it's going to be, I'm just doing beginning dulcimer kinds of
Mm-hmm.
stuff there, in Michigan. It's at a festival in Michigan.
Wonderful.
So yeah, so I love teaching and I would like to do more of it. And now I have a way that'll make it more obviously
Mm-hmm.
workable.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dulcimoon is really dedicated to the idea that online music education can be a quality thing.
Yes,
Both Erin Mae and I teach online all the time, and
great.
we love having different teachers present their thing that really lights them up. You know, what
Right.
class creates nirvana in you?
No, that's really, really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. Oh, I should mention, sorry, just
Mhm, that's
because
okay.
I do have some lessons with Kentucky Music Institute.
Oh, good.
That I recorded for them because I have been teaching at Kentucky Music Week
Mhm,
in Kentucky the last couple of years. I'm not there this year,
mhm.
but I'm sure I'll be back in the future. But they do have recorded lessons that I've done. But doing private lessons to a person is what I'm available for.
Great. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And I love that. I love what you're saying about giving. It's like you give a student tools and then they get to make whatever they want with from the tools they have.
That's right. And I honestly am equal parts frightened and thrilled when my students definitely do better than me. I mean, it's like, oh, I helped you find that.
Yes.
Fantastic. You
Yes.
go. You go. Right?
Yeah, well, it's, in some ways, isn't it like that expression paying it forward?
Yeah.
Because someone, guided you, in some way or helped you, or you saw someone play and it was like lit the spark. And I just think that that's, that kind of live transmission, that you get to do. And I think that happens online as well, to
It
some
does.
degree.
Yeah.
That you don't know what someone's going to do with it. And when someone does do amazing things that you wouldn't have even thought of doing, it's an incredible gratitude back to the teacher that you provided the tools,
Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic. Well, we
We
could
do have
definitely.
one question about the book about the tunings in it. Does it use one tuning or different tunings?
Oh, good question. In fact, it's good that that question was answered. I mixed Lydian and Aeolian modes primarily. There is a tune in Lydian. But that said, everything is tuned one step down. So like Mixolydian would be in CGC instead of the
Mm-hmm.
DAD.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all relative to that. So if you just play the tablature, it doesn't matter, what the notes below it say,
Right.
because it's all the same. But the reason I did that was, and I have been playing with everything tuned down, is because I really love to bring out the lower end of the dulcimer. And it also suited my voice best. It's really those two things.
Mhm.
I used to be a soprano. I now have I still play with it, again, one step down, CGC for the Mixolydian and CGB, B flat for the Aeolian, etc. But I also do now have a baritone dulcimer because I can now play some songs that I couldn't, were just out of my range as an older person. So yeah. So I think I would just say to folks who are considering, oh, I don't want to retune my stuff down one step lower, you might find you really like the sound. And it's,
Right.
of course,
And more importantly, you don't have to just read the tab.
exactly. You don't have to do any of that to get value from the book. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been so delightful, Ruth. I'm really grateful that we were able to find a date so quickly and so close to the one with Cynthia as well. I really love hearing about how both of you have moved into other parts of your lives, you know, scholastically and musically. That's really
Yes.
fantastic.
It's amazing. You know, it's like we started off in this like as teenagers and now we're, you know, we're older women. We grew into, I think if we just all grew into ourselves, you know.
Yeah, I think
And
that's true. Well, thanks so much.
thank
I
you.
just want to say a word or two that we're going to have another talk next week with Patty Amelot, who is from the Los Angeles area. She plays and teaches hammer dulcimer and piano, and we're really excited to have her join us next time. I'm Go ahead and subscribe to the Dulcimoon channel. You'll find out about all of these that happen about twice a month. And this will be on our archive at YouTube at exactly the same link, Ruth, so you can let your folks
Okay.
know. And thank
Perfect.
you so much. Have a beautiful day today.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening. It was a pleasure. Thank you so
Sure.
much,
You hang
DJ.
on a minute and we'll say goodbye to our viewers. And thank you so much for joining us. You can check this out and send the link to your friends. Bye-bye.